according to a recent study, the number of abandoned children in South Africa is on the rise. It's reported that over 1,000 children have been deserted in the country over the past 2 years due to poverty and inequality. So what role can adoption play in mitigating this, and how can one go about it? Let's take a closer look at what these numbers mean and bring into the discussion now the CEO of Door of Hope, David Allen, and the Director of the Impilo Child Protection and Adoption Services, Sue Krawitz. To both of our guests, thanks very much indeed. I want to begin with Door of Hope this morning, David, because there has been, insofar as pre-COVID-19 numbers is concerned, a bit of an increase in the number of children that have been abandoned in the country over the past 2 years. Has Door of Hope seen that increase as well?
Hi, good morning to you and your viewers. Yeah, thanks for the invite. Yes, Door of Hope has seen an increase. Since lockdown started back in 2020, we've received 124 children into our care. So there has been a slight increase, but yeah, it's not. We've seen numbers similar to that in previous years as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of the coverage around the story that we've seen this week, David and Sue, is that there is a difficulty at the moment in trying to find homes for children who are getting older. So those who are out of the baby and toddler phase and are now going into the next phase of childhood. Sue, how is this impacting the situation we're in at the moment?
Yes, so good morning. It is generally harder to find adoptive families for older children.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, children under 3, it's much easier to find homes. Unfortunately, after that age, there's a lot more baggage that the child comes with, and the success of adoptions tends to drop as a child gets older. And you have to find very special families who are prepared to take on older children. So that's the first issue. The second issue, because of that, children are further delayed because it takes us so long to find these families.
Yeah, certainly. And of course, the first prize to both of you, David, perhaps you can answer this question as well, is to try and track down any family members. When a child is abandoned, to try and get in touch with any family members, because in many cases, just according to some of the writings around this issue, young women give birth to children without the knowledge of their families. And in many cases, the hope is that the families, once they find out, will indeed take the children in.
Yes, that is true. Reunification with extended family is obviously first prize. But unfortunately, in terms of some of Door of Hope's cases, when a baby gets placed in a baby saver, for argument's sake, there's very little information to go on. But the social workers and the statutory services do have a process of trying to identify and advertise and try and see if there is any extended family. But unfortunately, not all the cases. It's in the best interest of the child to go to extended family, but ideally that is the first choice. In our experience over the years, we've managed to have 347 of our children managed to be reunified with family.
Yeah. Sue, what does this mean for a baby who grows up in the system and there's no reunification that's an option, and foster care doesn't work out, and there's no process of adopting a child? What is the future of that child in the system?
Okay, so no child should remain without a family unless it's an absolute last resort. So reunification is important, and we work hard to find families and to talk to them. And the reason, often mothers who abandon children, some of them don't hide the pregnancy. They don't tell people around them because they're afraid that they won't get the support. However, when you talk to the families, there is often support. Now, it takes a long time to find mothers, and as we're doing this, children get older and older, and that's really one of the problems of the system. Is, we understand checks and balances, but it's becoming longer and longer to find a child. A clean abandonment, a clear abandonment, is not that difficult to move that child through the system into adoption. The Act actually prioritizes abandoned children for adoption. And no abandoned child should not be adopted. There is no necessity for foster care for abandoned children. There are families, and we should move those children into adoption.
Absolutely.
So where there's a family found, we have to explore the reunification. But abandonment is a priority. Adoption is a priority for abandoned children.
Absolutely. As you say, no child should be without a family, Sue. David, just in terms of the issue of adoption, of course it shouldn't be an easy process to adopt a child. There needs to be all kinds of checks and balances to ensure that that child is going to a family that will love them, to a home that is safe. Having said that, is our system of adoption overly complicated and difficult?
It's a bit of a tricky one. Over the years, from when we started 22 years ago, the process of adoption was a lot quicker. There was a lot, I say, less red tape to get through. But in more recent times, there are a bit more checks, especially depending on whether you're doing an international adoption or local. The different agencies require different information. So there's medical checks. We've got to obviously make sure the birth certificate, sometimes that's a bit of a delay, where especially if it's an abandoned baby, they don't come with birth certificates. And so if they're under 1, getting a birth certificate is a little bit easier. Over 1 year old and they don't have a birth certificate, there's extra hoops and loopholes to get through, which then obviously delays the process. So yeah, it all really depends on where they're going. But a lot of the checks are needed because sometimes, as Sue mentioned, with older children, they do come with baggage. So you need to get them assessed so that the adoptive parents are fully aware of the child's state, of the emotional being, so that they are fully prepared to obviously take the child, love the child, and then for long-term care or counseling on these children. So, yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one, but, yeah, depending on its case-to-case basis, that it's either quick or slightly longer. And then, obviously, parental involvement also plays a big impact on how quickly the children can move and if they're willing to sign in court or not.
I mean, certainly on the issues that you've just mentioned, insofar as Home Affairs involvement is concerned, for example, with the issue of birth certificates, those are things that we can fix in the system, aren't they? Sue, for people who are listening to this discussion this morning and who may have thought of adopting a child, what would be your message to them this morning?
I think that you should explore what that would mean for you, and the best way to do that is to contact an accredited adoption organization who are then able to walk you through the process, to give you the information that is required. As we've just said, as David just said, it's a long and difficult process, and that's necessary for the child, to ensure the best family for the child. The issue of getting the children ready is also long. But I think that we would encourage people to contact accredited adoption service providers. The adoptionsa.info.org or either of our organizations will direct you to various websites, but make sure it's an accredited adoption service provider. Very, very important.
Absolutely. And an incredibly important discussion we're having this morning. Let me thank both of you for weighing in on it. David Allen is the COO of Door of Hope, and Sue Krawitz is the director at Impilo Child Protection and Adoption Services. If you've been listening in and perhaps the question of adopting a child has been on your mind, the advice there is to contact an accredited adoption organization as your first step.